What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 13 top 18 tight end rankings. This is probably going to be my last video of the week, so if you guys have missed any of the other positional rankings, those have all already been posted. But let's just dive right into tier 1 here. And I think at this point, there have been a pretty clear top 4 in terms of the tight end position. We're going to start off with Trey McBride. Here's my tight end 1. He is currently the tight end 3 in points per game, despite only scoring 2 touchdowns. And oddly enough, he hasn't caught a touchdown. He has a rushing touchdown, and then he has a fumble recovery for a touchdown. But he's coming off a massive week 12 for 133, 15 targets. If he could just hit in the touchdown department, I mean, he truly would have like that elite tight end 1 ceiling. It hasn't happened so far, but the volume's been there. He just needs those touchdowns to follow. After McBride, I have Travis Kelce, and I did strongly consider putting him up as the tight end 1, just because I think the Chiefs are going to put up a ton of points in this matchup. Going up against this Raiders defense, they are number 2 in implied points. The reason why I didn't give him that bump is that he really just has not been getting into the end zone. Just like Trey McBride, he has only scored 2 touchdowns, and it's not like the tight end position for the Chiefs isn't getting into the end zone. Noah Gray has had 2 touchdowns in each of the last 2 games, so 4 touchdowns in his last 2. Travis Kelce only has 2 on the season. Still the tight end 4 in points per game. Still obviously going to be a lock in your lineup, but that is why I didn't end up having him here at number 1. Up next, and in that same matchup with Travis Kelce, I have Brock Bowers, and I would be willing to rank him higher. I have in previous weeks, even though, he's in a rough offensive situation. It just seems especially bad this week. The Raiders have by far the lowest implied point total, all the way down at 14.5. Gardner Minshew's done for the year. Seems like they might be getting Aiden O'Connell back at quarterback, and he's actually coming off his worst fantasy game since week 4. I still think Brock Bowers will be fine. He's insanely talented. He's been producing at an insane level. I mean, just for a rookie tight end, for a rookie in general, and then also when you just factor in his offensive situation, the dude is an absolute monster. I still have him in tier 1, but he's going to be my tight end 3 this week. And then the last guy in this tier, someone who has typically come in as my tight end 1 overall, it is George Kittle going up against the Bills. Now, this is with the assumption that Brock Purdy is not playing. If Purdy is playing, I would have George Kittle locked in as my tight end 1. We actually did see him have a nice game in week 12 without Purdy. 6 targets, 6 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. I just don't think that's a sustainable stat line with no Brock Purdy at the quarterback position. So where he slots in tier 1 is really just going to come down to who is at the quarterback position. Now moving into tier 2, honestly looking like a really solid tier as of late. Going to start off with TJ Hawkinson going up against the Cardinals. Now in his first few games back, the usage was not great. He was not getting like his full route participation. That seemingly changed in week 12. Had an 84% route participation, 9 targets, 7 receptions for 114 yards. If that type of usage and that type of production continues, I could definitely see him getting bumped into tier 1 rest of season. Behind TJ Hawkinson, I have Jonnu Smith, and he really has just come out of nowhere. In his last 2 games, he has put up 28.1 and 23.7. Pretty much on the strength of those last 2, he is already up to the tight end 5 in points per game. He has been a focal point of this offense. They are feeding him, and he is producing. So he's going to be my tight end 6 here going up against the Packers. And then the last tight end in this tier is going to be David Njoku going up against the Broncos. In the games with Jameis Winston at quarterback, he's averaging 14.3 points per game. Just a very solid mid-tier tight end 1 play. Now looking at a small tier 5, both these guys are kind of in unique situations. The first one, Taysom Hill, is just a very unique player. This is obviously, if he qualifies in your tight end spot. He's coming off a bye week, but before the bye, he dropped a 41.5 point PPR point game. Insane production all the way around, was getting targets, carries, pass attempts. And it's not like that 40-plus point game came completely out of nowhere. He's put up 14-plus in 3 of his last 5. Now, I don't think, that type of creative usage is going to lead to these nuclear performances every single game, but it does seem like they're making a point to kind of get him involved, just get the ball in his hands, especially with all the injuries to all of their weapons. I could see myself moving him up higher moving forward if he, can get some consistency here in terms of the production. After Taysom Hill, and the other guy in tier 3 is going to be Cade Otton. And I think Cade Otton is in a very interesting spot right here because early on in the season, he wasn't super fantasy relevant. Like, best case scenario, he was a desperate tight end play based on bye weeks or injuries. Then you have the injuries to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And from week 7 through 9, he puts up 18 points, 29.1, and 21.7 points. And typically, like, just because the top two weapons go down, it doesn't mean that someone's just going to step up and be an absolute monster, because targets are earned, not given. So it was a little bit disappointing when Cade Otton put up a 4-point game with Mike Evans back in the lineup. I'm not completely burying him. I think he flashed the talent. I'm willing to kind of bank on a bounce back here, but it's definitely important to see a better game out of him here against the Panthers. I do believe he can do it. We just got to see it here in that matchup. Now, moving into a very, very large tier 4, going to start off with Evan Ingram going up against the Texans. This is going to be assuming that Trevor Lawrence is not playing. Just doesn't seem like it's trending in that direction. In the 2 games with Mac Jones, hasn't put up crazy production, but at least he's getting, the ball a decent amount, 15 targets in those 2 games. Not going to have a super high ceiling, but at least he has some sort of a volume floor week to week. Then I have Dallas Goedert going up against the Ravens. Goddard's the tight end 9 in points per game. They're 2.5-point underdogs in this matchup. Could lead to a more pass-heavy game script. I would feel better about Goddard if Devonta Smith was not able to play this week. Then I'm going to go with Zach Ertz, the former Eagles tight end, going up against the Titans. He has put up 15-plus points in back-to-back weeks. He has put up 14-plus points in 4 of his last 6 games. He's been getting into the end zone over the last couple of games. I think he's kind of, settled into like this fringe tight end 1 area. Like I said, a very large tier 4. Then I have Kyle Pitts going up against the Chargers. He's had a very interesting season so far, where he started off being pretty disappointing. Then towards the middle of his season, he strung together like 3-4 really impressive games. And then he's kind of cooled off as of late. So under 10 PPR points in his last 3 games. On the season, he is the tight end 14 in points per game. This is probably about what he is, a high-end tight end 1 to a back-end tight end 1 play. After Pitts, I'm going to go with Mark Andrews going up against the Eagles. And if I wanted to, I could sit up here and talk about the route participation, kind of nitpick it, talk about how he's in a tight end by committee. But at some point, it really doesn't matter if he is getting into the end zone. If you're like scoring on a consistent basis at the tight end position, you are going to be playable. And Mark Andrews has 6 touchdowns in his last 7 games, and that has led to 14 plus PPR points in 5 of his last 7. So the floor is very low because it's not like he's getting force-fed targets, but if he can keep getting into the end zone, he will continue to be a fine play in your lineup. Kind of a guy in a similar spot here. We have Tucker Kraft going up against the Dolphins. He is currently 2nd in the NFL in touchdowns, or, at the tight end position. I believe he's tied with Mark Andrews at number 2. The problem is he is just not getting consistent volume. 3 total targets in his last 2 games. He's pretty much become like touchdown or bust at this point. And then the last guy in this tier, pretty much the exact opposite of a Tucker Kraft or Mark Andrews. Hunter Henry is going to get solid usage. He's going to get solid volume week to week. He is just not going to get into the end zone. He has 1 touchdown in 12 games, but he's still averaging 11.2 PPR points with Drake May. So maybe a little bit of a lower ceiling if he's not scoring, but someone who does have a higher floor, just more consistently involved on a week-to-week basis. And then my last 2 tight ends here, honestly, just like tight ends paired with good quarterbacks. Coming into this season, if you told me I'd be ranking Dalton Kincaid and Will Dissly back-to-back, I would have told you were a psycho, but that's where we're at this point. Dalton Kincaid going up against the Niners. This is going to be assuming he comes back from that knee injury. Just has not been all that good this year. Not getting into the end zone, even on a good offense, not commanding a ton of volume, not, producing on the volume he is getting. It just hasn't been great. Tough to rank him any higher than this. And then Will Dissly, it's not a high bar, but he's scored 8 or more PPR points in 5 of the last 6 weeks. Attached to Justin Herbert, he, I guess, is at least somewhat reliable, where you have, Quentin Johnston being like the worst wide receiver on the planet. But that's going to wrap it up for my top 18. Honorable mentions to Cole Kmet, and then also Schoonmaker from the Cowboys if Jake Ferguson is not able to clear concussion protocol. But that's going to wrap it up for my top 18/20. Thank you all for stopping by. Hope you guys enjoy Thanksgiving with your family if you do celebrate. But thank you all again, and I will see you in the next one.